focus of this session is to solve a problem. So we'll actually show a problem statement to you, explain the problem statement, then give you some time to actually think about the problem. So you might as well open your editors and you can just try to solve the solution, and maybe you can explain your solution while unmuting or just write in the chat box. And after that, we'll explain the logic to you and implement in C. Let's just start with the syntax of conditionals in C++. So to write the if else statements, you just write the keyword if, open parentheses, and here you write the condition. And that in these curly braces, you write your code. So basically, this code block will execute if this condition is true. And just after the if condition, you have the else block. Inside this code block, you write cd for short. So this code block will execute when this condition is false. This will execute when this is true. Yeah, and between the if and else block, you have the else if block. So the syntax is pretty similar. The else if, and here you write a new condition, condition 2. So let's say you want to execute this code block when this condition is true, but you want to execute a different code block and this condition is not true, but you also want to check a different condition. So that's why you use the else if block. And of course, you can have multiple else if blocks within the if and else block. And you can even nest these if else conditions. So there can be if inside this if else to. Yeah, so this is the basic syntax of a if else condition. We'll use these conditions while solving problems. So we'll give you an example there only. This is to just go through the syntax. And the next conditional expression is the switch case inside C++. So for that, we just write the switch case. So the switch case is used when you want to compare an integral value with many different values. So the syntax is like this. Here you have an integral expression. So any expression that will basically evaluate to an integer or a variable which is an integer expression. And inside this curly braces, you actually write your cases. Let's say we write case 0 here. And what this means is this compare this integral expression with 0. So if this integer is equal to 0, we'll execute the code block here, the code statements here. After each case, you actually have to write the break statement. So if this integral expression is equal to 0, execute this code block and then break out of the switch case. And of course, after the first case, you can have multiple cases here. So basically, let's write 1 here and 2 here. Let's have an integer. Let's say a is equal to 0. And then we give a as an input to the switch case. What this switch case will do is compare a with 0. If it's equal, it will execute this code block. It's right out 1 here, 0 here, in a new line. And in this, is this 1 here and 2 here. So let's try to execute that. Now we get 0 printed, and 0 is equal to 0. This statement was executed. Then break was encountered, so it breaked out of this switch case. And after coming out, the compiler will basically start executing the lines here, from here, after the switch case. So if our a is 1, this should be printed, 1 should be printed. And then inside the switch case, you have the default case, which is used when none of these cases match, then this default case will be executed. So, and default here. And let's say our a is something else, like 10. So 10 is not equal to 0, not is equal to 1, not is equal to 2. then this default case should be executed. So this is basically your switch case when you want to compare one value with many different values to this switch case. And one more thing in switch cases are the fall through cases. So let's say we don't write a break statement here. And let's say our A is 0. What do you think will be the output here? We saw that 0 was equal to 0, then this was executed. And then since we had break there, we breaked out of the switch case. But now we don't have the break case. So let's see the what's the output. We have 0 printed, but we also have 1 printed here. So since we don't have a break statement, we didn't actually go out of this switch case, and the compiler started executing statements till it encountered the next break case. So if we remove break from here as well, we should be seeing 0, 1, 2, and then we'll break out of the switch case from here. And of course, if we remove this 2, we'll get all of these printed. So you'll never actually mostly have to go through this. You almost always write break after each of the cases. And the next thing is when you want to compare this value with more than one value. So you can omit the break statement and any statements if you want to compare this 0 or 1. So this basically means if A is equal to 0 or A is equal to 1, execute this code. So if A is equal to 0, yeah, 1 is printed, or if A is equal to 1, then again 1 should be printed. Yeah. So this was the basic switch case in C++. And the next conditional expression is basically the ternary operator, which you might be knowing. So that syntax is just similar, except this is just a smaller if else. You can actually use if else also, but you just want to, if you want to reduce your code size, you can use this. This would be your statement 1. And then this will be your statement 2. So this basically means to execute statement 1 when condition is true, or execute statement 2. So if this is true, we'll execute this, else we'll execute this. Yeah. So these are the three conditional expressions in C++. And let's move on to the loops, the syntax of loops. The first type of loops in C++ is the for loop. Yeah, the for loop has basically 3 parts, and we separate these parts with semicolons. So the first part is our initialization, next part is our condition, and the last part is our incrementation or decrementation. So this is basically an example of for loop, where we have initialized I as 0, we are comparing I till 10 and incrementing it. So we should get 0 to 9 printed. Since I goes from 0 to 9, and then after we compare 10 less than 10, it falls. So this was basically the for loop. We'll use this again in the problem statement, so you'll know there. Yeah, so the next one is the while loop. The syntax for while loop is just we write the keyword while and we have the condition here. And inside these curly braces, we write our code block here. So the difference between for and while loop is just that while loop doesn't have any 3 parts. We just have to pass the condition here. We usually use this while loop for getting t-test pieces as an input. Basically, we initialize our t variable as 1 here, take t as an input, and then till t minus minus. So we have written t minus minus as the condition here. So basically, any integer except 0 is true, and 0 only evaluates to false. So if our t is equal to 5, let's see what's printed here. Yeah, we have 43210. So 5 was returned to I, and since 5 is true, it is not equal to 0 since it's not false. So we'll decrement t, and the value inside t will be 4. So this will go on till we have t is equal to 0 given to the value. Then we'll break out of the value. This was just a simple syntax of while loop. So the next loop is a do while loop. This is basically the same as while loop, except we have a code block before the condition. So we execute this code block and then we check for this condition. And if this condition is true, then we enter into the next iteration, the next step of our while loop. So this was actually an exit control loop, since the condition is checked after executing our first iteration. And the while loop and the for loop are entry control loop, since the condition is checked before entering into the code block. So these were the syntaxes of conditionals and loops. And for now, we'll just begin with the problem statement. I think Chaitanya will explain the problem statement to you. She'll show you the problem statement. Yeah.
Yes.
Over to you, Chaitanya.
Before starting the problem statement, we'll see the interface of the CodeChef platform. Here you can navigate through different practice problems, contests, and discussions. This is the problem name, problem statement, input format, output expected, constraints. Here's an example of a test case, and this is a short explanation about the problem. You can test and submit your code by clicking this button. And if you're not registered yet to the CodeChef platform, then I'll share you the link. You can register there. Okay, so let's start with the problem. First, you all just read the problem, try to analyze it, and try to write the logic. I'll give you 2 minutes. If anyone got the solution, they can send it in the chat box, or they can also unmute themselves and explain the logic. This is a problem based on the chessboard and the king. The inputs are given as test cases and the position of the king on chessboard and the number of moves, the utmost number of moves. And we have to print the number of squares, the maximum number of squares which can be visited at most in k moves. And here's the condition. So anyone who has understood the question? They can explain the logic. Okay, has someone ever played chess, and can someone tell me how many moves can a king make in one step and in what directions? One step in any direction, correct, Siddharth. In all directions, one step. Yes, you all are right. So let's discuss the problem statement now. In the first paragraph, the condition for the valid movement of king per step is given. So this is the condition. If this condition is true, then king can move to the square. Like for example, if king is here, then to move in all these boxes, this is the condition. And these are the coordinates, r dash and c dash. R and c are the coordinates of row and column. Here we can see the example. In the second paragraph, they have given us that the R and C are the coordinates of position of king on the chessboard. And we have to count the number of squares which can be visited by the king in at most k moves. So this count will be our output. So has everyone understood the problem? Is there someone who hasn't understood the problem statement? Here moves is nothing but the number of steps. Like this is first step. So this is one step. So what we most of the times do is we rush to code the program as soon as we understand the logic, which is wrong. First we need to think about all the possible test cases. Then we should use our pen and paper to visualize the flow of problem and write down the pseudocode at least for it, which will be stepwise pseudocode, so that we can code in a better way and with a better logic. Let's see a few basic things so that we can know how to approach the problem. Then we'll see the logic part. A king on square r comma c, which is r is 2 and c is 2, can move to another square r dash comma c dash. These all are the random squares which can denote r dash comma c dash if and only if this condition is true. This condition is satisfied. So this is the initial position of the king, and the shaded squares are the squares where you can visit in one move, and this is the condition. So here we can see that the king can move to all these squares. Now let us check this condition with few examples. Here r dash comma c dash is 3, which is a valid input as it falls under the shaded region. Now let us check this condition is satisfied or not. Here the answer obtained is 1, which is less than or equal to 2. So the condition is true. Now let us check r dash comma c dash as 5 comma 3, which doesn't fall under the shaded region. Here the final answer is 9, which is not less than or equal to 2. So the condition fails. So we can conclude that the condition is true for these positions. So can anyone tell me what is the position of the king in this diagram? 5 comma 3, correct? Yes. Yes, right. So for example, let's assume a random point. One thing to note here is the r dash here and the previous r dash, both are different, they aren't same. So the coordinates of the random point is 3 comma 7. Now here we have seen that we have to take an input k from the user, which denotes the at most number of steps, and in this example we'll understand the logic. So please listen the example carefully. Our first step is to calculate the minimum number of steps required to reach a random point. We'll calculate that by following steps. First, we have to find the values of k1 and k2 by mod of r minus r dash and mod of c dash minus c, which is, and this is r, this is c dash, and this is c. So we'll see now. So we got the values of k1 and k2, 2 and 4. Can someone tell me what are the minimum number of steps for king to reach from here to this random point? Yes, Dhruv, your logic is partially correct. 4. Anyone else has some other answer? So Parth, did you observe any logic, like, or did you just randomly decide that it's 4? Or did you observe is it 4? Why not like this? Okay, so let's see the logic behind this. So the logic is to find the minimum number of steps. First, we'll go diagonally till we reach the row or column of the random point. So when we go diagonally here, so we can see first step, second step. Then once we reach the row of this random point, we'll start moving horizontally. So the third step and fourth step. So this is how we obtain the minimum number of steps. Now, if we don't have this diagram, how will we come to know when to start moving horizontally or vertically? That we will see in the upcoming slides. This is the initial position of the king. So we'll preserve these values of k1 and k2 for now. If k1 and k2 is not equal to 0, then we've moved diagonally. So this was the first step of king. Now we'll calculate the values of k1 and k2 again. We'll continue to move diagonally because k1 or k2 is not equal to 0. So this is the step 2. Here the value of k1 is 0. So we'll start moving horizontally. Now the values of k1 and k2 are 0, which means we have reached the random coordinate that we had assumed. Here we can see that the number of steps is 4, in which the king reached 3, 7. We had also preserved the values of k1 and k2. Now we'll see why did we preserve them. To calculate the minimum number of steps required to reach 3, 4, we take the maximum number of initial k1 and k2, that is max of k1 and k2, which is max of 2 and 4 is 4. So which means we need 4 steps to reach from here to here. So here the logic is we just need to calculate the initial k1 and k2 and we need to find the maximum value from both of them, and that number is the minimum number of steps we require. Therefore 4 steps are required. Here we'll take another example in which the random point is this. So here if we calculate k1 and k2, r dash minus r is 1 and c dash minus c is 2. So the max of 1 and 2 is 2. Therefore, the king will move here in 2 steps, that is 1 and 2. First diagonally, then horizontally. Okay, so now let us understand how to count the number of squares that can be visited by the king. So before that, did everyone understand how we calculated the minimum number of steps using the values of k1 and k2 and max function? Did everyone understand the max function and the values of k1 and k2, how they are used? Okay, fine. So we'll proceed with the loop part. The user input is taken in the variable k, that is minimum number of steps. Here 3, 7 was just an iteration. This was just one part of the loop. In the same way, we have to check all the positions. Here the k was 4. So if the user had given the input of k as 4, then this was a valid input. And if this was here, then it will take 4 steps, 3 steps. So that is also a valid, because in the problem statement it's mentioned that in at most 4 steps, in at most k steps, how many squares can the king visit. So this is a valid input. In the same way, we have to check all the squares and then we'll get the count of all the valid squares. Like this will be the first iteration. We will get minimum number of steps by max function. Then we'll compare this value with the user input k. If max of k1 and k2 is less than or equal to k, then the square can be visited. And if the minimum steps is greater than k, then it can't be visited. Then the square can't be visited. Did everyone understand till here? Okay. So this is the second iteration, third iteration, fourth iteration, and so on. So this will continue 64 times, as this is 8 by 8, so 64 till the last iteration. We'll take the input as RC, which is R comma C, that is the row value and the column value of the position of the king, and K is minimum number of steps. And we have to check in at most K integer value. For example, if K is 2, then we have to check in at most 2 steps what all squares can the king cover, can the king visit. So we can check that by doing a loop and checking the condition of k1 and k2 and max function. So this is the pseudocode. First we'll take the input from the user. First line is the test case. Second is the coordinates of the king and number of at most steps. We'll use while loop for the test case, and for the iteration of row we'll use for loop. For the iteration of column we'll use again a nested for loop, and then inside this for loop we'll calculate the values of k1 and k2. Here 2 is missing, so we'll calculate the values of k1 and k2. Here the minimum number of moves will also be calculated in the next step, which is max of k1 and k2. Here we'll check a condition if minimum number of moves is less than equal to k, which means if this is less than equal to k, if this was 4, so if the point was here, then we will take more steps. So this is an invalid point. So that will be checked here, and the count will be incremented. If this is true, the count will be incremented. If this is not true, the count won't be incremented. And then we have to print the count, which is the output which we saw here. I'll show you the. So this is the output. For each test case, print a single line containing one integer, the number of squares king can visit. So the count is nothing but the number of squares the king can visit, the valid number of squares. So did everyone understand the problem, the whole problem? Like how we are putting the logic in a loop and then we are checking each square whether it is valid or not and whether it can be reached or not. Okay, cool. I hope so you have understood the logic and the approach towards the question. Now Yash will explain the code for the same problem. Over to you, Yash.
With the PPT, we'll just create a new file, adapting, and we'll just write the basic template first. Then using namespace. This is basically your C++ template. And then the first step is to take a t as an input. So we are getting first line of input contains a single integer t. So we take input of t and store it here. And then we have to loop through t test cases. So for that, as we saw earlier, we'll use this while loop and t minus minus. This will run t times. Inside this, we'll implement our logic for each test. So what we have to do is test case, we take first and only line of integer contains three space separated integers r, c, k. So we need to take three integers r, c, k. Take the c in. And then what we have to do is we have to loop through every cell. So, on a chest of 18 to 8 uh, rows and columns. So for the first, for 8 rows, we'll have our I is equal to 1, since we have the board from 1 to 8. Yeah, R and C are from 1 to 8. We'll initialize I as 1. I should be less than equal to 8, and we'll increment I. So this loop was for the rows, and now we have a similar loop for the columns. So this is basically a 2D loop. This is 8 rows, and inside each row, we are going through 8 columns. And let's have this as J. Let's just print this here and see what we get. Print I and J. Okay, so this is printed 64 times. So let's see. 1 comma 1 is the first cell, 1 comma 2 is the second cell. We have till 1 comma 8, then 2 comma 1, 2 comma 8, and like this till 8 comma 8. So we're going through each cell till 8 comma 8. And then for each cell, we have 2 points. So the first point is our given point, R comma C is our input. And the next point is our I comma J. So each of these 64 points. And for all of these points, we have to check if we basically have to find minimum number of steps required to go from R comma C to I comma J. So for that, we first calculate K1 comma K2, the horizontal and vertical distances between these 2 points. So let's initialize K1 and K2 here. K1 will be is equal to absolute value of R minus I. So this is basically the horizontal distance between these 2 points. And our K2 is the vertical distance between these 2 points. C minus J. Once we have the horizontal and vertical input, we saw that the minimum number of steps to go from R comma C to I comma J is basically the max of K1 and K2. So our minimum number of steps is basically the max of K1 comma K2. And once we have minimum number of steps, we just have to check if this is less than equal to the given K value. Since the problem states that we have to move, the king can move at most K steps. So if the minimum number of steps required to go from R comma C to any point I comma J, if the minimum number of steps is less than equal to K, then we have to just maintain a count variable. And this is our answer is equal to 0. And basically, if we can go from R comma C to I comma J in minimum number of K steps, at most K steps, we increment our answer. Yeah, so this loop will run 64 times, check for each I comma J. If we can move to there in minimum K steps, at most K steps, we increment the answer. And here we just have to print this. Yeah. And backslash. For the input, we need to see what the input is. So let's see if this runs. We get 6 as the output, and the expected output is also 6. So let's try to submit this code actually. Copy this code. Just to show you the interface of CodeChef, how you submit a code. We'll go down here. We'll click this submit button. And here you can select C++. Okay. And then just paste your code here. So once you paste your code, you just have to click the submit button. And let's see if it is a correct answer. Yeah. So we get the correct answer here. So since we have some time left, let's just go over the syntax of functions in C++. So basically, syntax, we have done the problem now. Now I'm just explaining the syntax of function. So basically, the syntax is you write the data type of return value here. And then the function name here. And inside this, you have your data type 1 and your parameter 1, arg1. And like this, you can have any number of arguments. And in curly braces, you can return a value here. This value will be of type of this data type. So this is basically the syntax. Let's actually use this syntax to write a function which accepts 2 points. So r comma c comma I comma j will be the 2 points, and will return the minimum number of steps from that function. So our return type is an integer. The function name is let's say get minimum steps between 2 points. So our 2 points can be integer x1, integer y1, integer x2, and integer y2. And inside this, we have to basically calculate k1 and k2 here. So we'll initialize k1, k2 there only. K1, k2. Yeah, and then we return the max value from here. Yeah, so now we call this function inside this loop every time for each cell. So our minimum number of steps will be equal to get minimum steps of r comma c is our first point, and then I comma j is our next point. And then the output should be 6, same. Yeah, it's 6. So this is how you just use functions in C++. And in the last session, I think you did macros also in C++. So you don't have to confuse functions with macros. Since like functions basically are called during runtime. So there are different stages when a compiler executes your C++ code, right? The first step is where it pre-processes the files. So in the pre-processing stage, all of the macros are actually replaced with their values. So your macros are run before the compilation part, right? And your functions are run during runtime. These are called during runtime. So let's actually again make a template. I'll show you where a macro is run. And let's have a macro like define q. We'll take x as an input. And we'll return basically x multiplied 2 times. This is our and let's have a function in sum, which takes a comma b as an argument and returns a plus b. And inside this, let's have int c is equal to cube of 5. And let's have integer d is equal to the sum of 2 comma 7. Let's just do this for now. So we are calling the cube with 5. We expect this to be replaced with 5 into 5 into 5. And we are calling the sum with 2 comma 7. See this? We don't have any errors. Do. No, these are warnings. Okay, so let's remove this for now. We are not using this header file. And let's open this folder inside in the terminal basically. So when you compile a GCC file, you can actually pass a -e parameter option to the compiler, G++, and let's have macro.cpp here. There is a file, yeah. So what this will do is the -e option tells the compiler to stop your processing after the pre-processing of the file. So let's do this. Yeah, and this will return what our file will look like after pre-processing. So this was our code, and this is the file after pre-processing. So we have this namespace std, and see, this cube macro was replaced with 5 into 5 into 5 just after pre-processing. But this sum value was not replaced. So what this means is this sum is called during runtime, and this macro is called during pre-processing of the file. Okay. So